What it is, my 10 piece in grease here. Today we're going to be talking about this little dude, the Oxylus Sentinel, or as I like to refer to him, the Purple Nurple. But before we delve into it, make sure that if you're needing or wanting a Loki Prime set, make sure you check out my vid, leave a comment to be entered. I will be pulling a name Saturday. I will be making a vid to announce the winner, and I will be trying to shoot you a message to let you know, and that way we can hook up and I can get you your Loki Prime set. So if you have any interest, make sure you check out that vid, make sure you leave a comment, that way you are automatically entered. But let's talk about the old Purple Nurple, shall we? The old Oxylus. Now, with Fortuna, as well as receiving the Warframe Garuda, as well as a whole host of weapons and content, we also actually got this little Sentinel dude, the Oxylus Sentinel. Now, believe it or not, there's a little bit of misunderstanding around this dude. A lot of people mistakenly assume that he is trying to take Helios and Helios Prime's job. This is not the case, which we'll get more into that later. But when should you use, where should you use, or even should you use the Oxylus Sentinel? I'm going to strive to answer all those questions and more. So let's get into this. It's important to keep in mind that when we talk about Sentinels, many of them have their own like little niche job or specific duty that they perform. With Carrier, we get ammo mutation. With Helios, it actually scans codex entries. With Shade and Prisma Shade, we actually get invis for the user. But what does the Oxylus do? Does it have that specific job? Well, let's take a look at this. So first, let's look at the Oxylus's resistances. First of all, we have an armor rating of 50, health of 200, and shields of 200. At a quick glance, you can tell the Oxylus, it is not a tank, to be certain. In fact, it has identical resistance stats as the Gen Sentinel and the Death Cube Sentinel. To date, the Carrier Prime is still the tank daddy of them all still. So let's look at this, the Oxylus's precepts. Now, with the Oxylus, you're going to get a scan matter and scan lifeforms, as well as an assault mode mod. Now, the assault mode mod is actually a pretty cool little mod, because it will basically make sure that your Sentinel attacks the very first visible enemy within 30 meters. Now, there are a couple Sentinels, one of which has very, very close range, and another that waits until its user is attacked first before it retaliates. Having this assault mode mod means that you don't have to wait for any of that. So it's a really nice way to kind of change up some of those precepts of some of those Sentinels that require extremely close quarters. Now, scan matter and scan lifeform is where the confusion is stemming from. Because of the way that the mods are labeled, a lot of people mistakenly assume that the Oxylus is going to actually scan something, similar to what the Helios or Helios Prime does, but this is not the case. In the case of scan lifeforms, however, what it does is give you +4 to your conservation encounters. Scan matter, what it does is show you containers within a 60-meter area for 8 seconds on your minimap. Once that 8 seconds expires, it will then stop showing you those items on your minimap. And then 30 seconds later, it will show you more resource containers on your minimap for 8 seconds. Again, once that 8 seconds expires, boom, it stops showing you those items. So it's an intermittent kind of animal instinct, basically, with the exception of enemy radar. With that said, you're probably going to ask the question, but Peace, why wouldn't I just run an animal instinct? Excellent question. And there are a few things to keep in mind here. First of all, is animal instinct worth that extra 8 points on your build compared to scan matter? Because a scan matter only requires 3 points on your build maxed, whereas an animal instinct is going to cost you 11. Now, myself and many other players will say absolutely animal instinct's totally worth it, but something to keep in mind is that there may be a lot of players out there that don't have animal instinct. So which is better to have, scan matter or no mod at all? Obviously scan matter would be better than nothing at all, and that's precisely what it does. Now, once you start keeping in mind that Fortuna is on Venus, you have a new player get to Fortuna, they start running these missions, increasing their rank, they get to max rank with Solaris United, they can pick up the Oxylus Sentinel from the business. Upon doing so, they'll get automatically scan matter, scan lifeforms, as well as assault mode. So no extracurricular farming necessary to acquire these. Something else to keep in mind here is you'll notice that I have 0 Forma in the Sentinel. And I have a maxed metal fiber, a maxed enhanced vitality, as well as a calculated redirection. And all my other mods are maxed. Shield Charger, Meta Ray, Vacuum, Guardian, as well as the scan mods and Assault mode. And I still have 2 points left over, 0 Forma. So this is also going to be a nice little benefit to a player that is acquiring a Sentinel and they don't want to have to worry about polarizing any of the slots, dumping Forma into it, or re-leveling it. So, yeah, there is definitely a good benefit there for the Oxylus Sentinel. I can see the appeal for a newer player. Now, if you progress in the game and you decide you want to take the Oxylus further, I personally would recommend one of the Prime Sentinels. But if you really enjoyed using the Oxylus, or if you end up using it a lot, certainly there's a case to polarize a slot for Animal Instinct once you acquire it. With that said, let's take a look at its weapon, the Moltron. Now, the Moltron is it's an okay Sentinel weapon. Not great, just kind of okay. You're looking at 12.5% crit chance with a 1.8 crit multiplier and 5% status chance. The downside is, even with a bunch of the crit mods and crit damage mods, you're going to notice that my crit chance is only at 37.3% with a almost 4 times crit multiplier, and my status is up to just over 9%. So yeah, the weapon does leave a lot to be desired, but it's one of those things you can pick up for standing from the business on Fortuna. So, I don't know, me personally, I don't think you can expect a weapon that is just absolutely dominating. With that said, I have not had a chance to check out the 2 new weapons that are available because my standing isn't maxed yet, which I'm still working on that. And I will be testing those 2 new weapons to see if they compare to my favorite Sentinel weapon, the Volclock, which is my absolute favorite Sentinel weapon. The Sweeper Prime is good, the Deconstructor Prime is good, but I tend to favor the Volclock. But to each their own. So let's get down to brass tacks, right? Let's get down and dirty. Would you use the Oxylus? Where and when would you use it? Well, quite simply, this is really going to depend on the player and the type of activity they're participating in. But in regards to the Oxylus, if I'm running a conservation activity in Orbalis where I'm luring and tranking and capturing wildlife in Orbalis, I will always have an Oxylus equipped, always, because no other Sentinel gives you +4 to those conservation encounters, not a single one. The only one that does so is the Oxylus. So yes, it does have its own niche build. If you plan on a lot of conservation activities and acquiring a bunch of those metric ton of those floops to decorate your orbiter, why wouldn't you have an Oxylus? Quite simply. I mean, it doesn't make sense not to have one at that point. However, if you're a player that probably isn't going to spend a lot of time in those conservation activities, then you're probably not going to reap a huge amount of benefit from it. It may just be MR fodder for you. So again, it really comes down to players. What you're going to be doing, how much you're going to be doing certain activities, and what you're going to prioritize as far as what type of Sentinel you're looking for. So hopefully that answered your questions. Hopefully it cleared some things up. Let me know down in the comments section what your favorite Sentinel is, what your favorite Sentinel weapon is, what you prefer to use, and what you think of the Oxylus. And until next time, peace and grace.